In the rocky fields of Manhattan, among wooden shacks and livestock, a marble mansion at modern-day Fifth Avenue and East 57th Street was built to reimagine what life could be like for New York's ultra-wealthy. Its owner, Mrs. Mary Mason Jones, was steadfast in her conviction that the city's high society would one day migrate northward to her doorstep, and to the astonishment of many, she was right. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. To understand how this improbable mansion came to be, one must go back to 1823 when Mary's father, banker John Mason, laid down a meager sum, about $10 a lot, for a stretch of rocky, largely undeveloped land between 57th and 58th Streets from Fifth Avenue over to what is now Park Avenue. When Mason passed away, a dispute over his will kept the property tangled in legal battles for 15 years, and rumor had it that in his final hours, barely conscious, he was forced into signing the fateful document. Regardless of whether these claims were exaggerated or not, the courts eventually released the inheritance to Mary in the mid-1850s, granting her control of 2 entire blocks of Manhattan real estate. Mary had already been widowed by the time she took possession of the land. She was also a formidable character in her own right, known for her aristocratic bearing and her deep ties to New York's old money crowd. Not one to be easily swayed by convention, she embarked on a plan that would shape the very skyline of Midtown. In 1867, Mary sat down with architect Robert Mook to draft a spectacular series of French-inspired residences along Fifth Avenue. While brownstones reigned supreme elsewhere, Mary wanted a light, gleaming facade that would stand out in a city awash in dark stone. She remembered the opulent chateaux of France, Fontainebleau especially, and insisted on white marble rather than the more familiar brownstone and brick. When the set of mansions was completed 2 years later, the press dubbed it Marble Row. Its French mansard roof and creamy marble walls were breathtakingly novel in post-Civil War New York. Each structure was intended to look like a coherent part of one grand design, though in reality there were several residences in the block. Occupying the prized corner house at 1 East 57th Street was Mary herself, from whose ground floor windows she could watch the city inch toward her. Indeed, society gradually pushed north from the vicinity of Washington Square and Madison Square, clearing away the rocky outcrops and dusty roads to create a new, glittering corridor of wealth. Over time, the likes of the Vanderbilts and the Astors would all become Mary's neighbors. By the end of the century, Marble Row was encircled by even grander houses, some even rivaling Mary's in splendor. But no one could deny the original Rose Place in launching a new standard of French-inspired urban palaces in Manhattan. From her marble perch, Mrs. Jones kept a keen eye on social comings and goings. Descended from an old Knickerbocker family, she believed firmly in the hierarchy of old money and wealth passed down through generations, rather than new fortunes amassed through industry or hotels. Her hallmark was exclusivity. Those accepted into her social circle took pride in attending her famed Sunday salons, which combined cultural discussion about art and literature with Mary's trademark airs of nobility. Younger socialites, desperate to claim a place among the city's most prestigious families, lined up for invitations to her receptions and balls. Mary's greatest social rivalry was with the wealthy widow, Mrs. Perrin Stevens, whose money came from her late husband's success in the hotel business. Rumor had it that she had been a maid before marrying into money, and to Mary, that source of wealth represented something short of a true aristocratic standing, and she made no secret of her disdain. She famously proclaimed that Mrs. Stevens would never be invited to step foot in Marble Row, and Mrs. Stevens in return proclaimed that she would never have gone anyways, invitation or not. This simmering hostility captured the imaginations of society gossip columns, which relished the story of one grand lady effectively drawing up the drawbridge and refusing to let a hotel keeper's wife into her fortress. Few would have guessed that fate would soon hand Mrs. Stevens an ironic turn, and let her claim the final victory in this rivalry. Mary passed away in 1891 at the age of 90, her confidence in the future of Upper Fifth Avenue fully vindicated. Not long after, the house at 1 East 57th Street was leased, then eventually purchased by none other than Mrs. Stevens. Before she moved in, she spent considerable sums redecorating its interiors in a style that one newspaper dryly described as eclectic. Gone was much of Mary's refined but restrained approach. In its place appeared heavily draped parlors and walls crowded with paintings and mirrors. For someone who had once longed for an invitation from Mary, it must have been sweet revenge to preside over the same grand spaces. Yet Mrs. Stevens would also face her share of setbacks. By the mid-1890s, her fortune was intertwined with the rise and fall of the Victoria Hotel on 27th Street, where diminishing revenues and disputes with co-managers put her in dire financial straits. The news of the hotel's failure took a steep toll on her fragile health, and in April of 1895, she passed away in the very mansion she had taken over from her greatest social rival. Next came the flamboyant, sometimes turbulent era of Hermann Ulrichs and his wife Tessie, the latter being an heiress to one of the Comstock lode fortunes. Under Tessie's watch, the house once again became a hub for glittering parties, musical performances, and fashionable gatherings. Although the mansion saw many dazzling fetes, none captured public attention quite like the wedding of William K. Vanderbilt Jr. to Tessie's sister, Virginia Fair. For that incredibly private ceremony where no pictures were allowed, Stanford White's newly built conservatory was filled with blooming fruit trees and draped in pink silk to ensure privacy, while the ballroom became a veritable rose garden. Outside, crowds of curious onlookers pressed against police barricades, causing near chaos in the eagerness to glimpse the famous couple. In the following decade, many of Mrs. Jones' once remote neighbors began moving yet further uptown. Commerce now crowded in on the mansions of Fifth Avenue below Central Park, and even the luminous Marble Row could not hold back the wave of new office buildings, department stores, and large banks. By 1918, Tessie effectively surrendered, and the New York Trust Company moved into 1 East 57th Street. For a few fleeting years, it was a bank that felt more like a genteel salon. But in a city that rebuilds itself again and again, nothing splendid lasts forever. By the close of the 1920s, real estate pressures sealed the mansion's fate. The bank announced a new skyscraper for the site, and within a year, the final fragment of Marble Row was demolished to make way for a 15-story building. Today, the corner of Fifth Avenue and East 57th Street is a hive of commerce, thronged by shoppers and tourists. Louis Vuitton's flagship stands where Mary Mason Jones once looked out on a barren expanse dotted with goats and wooden sheds. Few who passed by realized that in the late 1860s, a widowed woman of old Knickerbocker heritage took a leap of faith, championed a French architectural style in an unlikely wilderness, and won her wager that this spot would become the center of society. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.